essentially just essentially what your budget is, kind of an educational approach in your office and your role. We'll open up for questions. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Representative Bergan, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for your time. I'm happy to answer your questions. Pretty straightforward. The auditor's office is taxpayers watchdog. We audit the state every year. By law, our audits are paid for in two different ways. Many of them, we receive an appropriation and we pull the funds from those appropriations to pay for that audit. There's another set of state departments by law that we bill for the work that we do. And so we have a billing rate, an hourly rate, and we use that in order to pay for the work that we are doing. If you look at the packet that we handed out there, you'll see that our appropriation has plummeted from where it was historically and has remained low for the last 15 years here. I will point out, if you flip to the back, the last graph that you see on the last page would point out that more recently, it's our office and the treasurer's office that have remained with incredibly low budget increases since fiscal year 19. So we have not had an increase for a long time. Now, what we are asking for is a change that would be revenue neutral. As I pointed out, we have a lot of audits that we do of departments that are paid for through the appropriation. But as that appropriation has stayed so flat for the last 15 years, costs have not stayed flat. As we all know, Iowans across the state are struggling to make ends meet because costs of everything have gone up. Auditing is no different. There has been a shortage of accountants and auditors across the United States. Iowa is no exception. And so the cost for auditing work has gone up, not just with the pace of inflation, but also because of the shortage in the profession itself. If we are to do the work that we need to do for state agencies and departments where we have an appropriation, it is going to cost more. What we are asking for, though, is a revenue neutral change where by receiving a larger appropriation, we would correspondingly reduce our billing rate to other state agencies. We think that the work that we are doing is important, but we want to make sure that we are able to do it in the right places. So by lowering our billing rate, if we receive an appropriation increase, that would allow us to do that work on the agencies where it needs to be done, which we have not had the ability to do much of a close look at for quite some time. There's a couple of other pieces of this that I think are worth pointing out. There's other ways to solve this problem. We've talked about these other ways over the years. So one is, if we increase the appropriation, we can decrease the billing rate. That's the most simple. But there's better ways to structure the law that would avoid this problem being repeated in the future. The federal government does not like the fact that our law has us bill for federally funded agencies and not bill for non-federally funded agencies. There is a reason that the legislature in the past set it up that way. That's pretty simple. It's because the agencies that get billed can then get reimbursed by the federal government. And so by us billing those federal ones, they are able to draw down those funds to pay for those audits with federal dollars. That's good for Iowa. The problem with having agencies that are funded by an appropriation is the feds think that it's discriminatory. I would disagree, but it's their money and that is their opinion. And so they want to fine the state of Iowa for the way our audit laws are structured through the legislature. And they also look at the situation, and again, we're in a situation now where because that appropriation has been flat, we haven't been able to do that work for a long time. A couple ways to fix this. One would be making it so that, as some states do, the auditor's appropriation is always just a set percentage of the state's budget. That would give us the ability to do our work, and it would correspond with the ebbs and flows of the state government, and we could put appropriations and put resources and put auditing attention where it needs to go. The other one, I think this is the easiest way to do it, is that we make all state agencies billable. I think that's the best way to do it because, number one, the federal government at that point isn't going to say, you're discriminating against federal dollars and we're gonna fine the state of Iowa until they change their laws. But number two, it gives every state agency skin in the game. When I was in the Attorney General's office as a prosecutor, I spent a couple of years of work prosecuting the Iowa Film Office tax credit scandal. It would be good if state agencies, before they make decisions, would look at a situation and recognize, hey, if this turns out to go south, the payment for our audit work to clean up our mess is going to come out of our own budget. If every state agency has skin in the game and they all have to pay for their own audits, they are going to be more careful and they are going to have, they're gonna not be led into temptation. They're gonna think twice before they make decisions that could be expensive for taxpayers in the state of Iowa. So I'd love those fixes. I think we're gonna provide dollar to dollar adjustments for State Department budgets that the legislature could consider if they were to make that change and make it so that every state agency is billed for their audit work. But for the time being, what we're proposing short of that is a revenue neutral appropriation increase that allows us to decrease the hourly billing rate for other state agencies. I have probably yammered on for long enough. Happy to answer any questions, or if you've got other topics related to our budget that I didn't bring up, let me know and I can yammer about that too.
I guess if you would comment just on the FTEs in the office and insufficiency. Your office does have a flexible cap as opposed to others. But
Yeah.
Where you're at with staffing and how that's working in your office.
Sure. That flexible cap is important for us because we have a healthy rate of turnover. It's probably higher than places like the Attorney General's office, as our office is competing again in an area where we have a lot of competition for the work in the Des Moines metro area, but also it's just a tough time right now because so many auditors and accountants from across the country have retired. So the flexibility in our cap is important because we will occasionally end up above it as we are putting out offers to maybe, it can be, 6 people at a time. And if all 6 take the job offer, great. Maybe we're over our cap for a little while, but then, folks leave and head out into the private sector, and so then we're under our cap. We're around 100, sometimes it's 90, sometimes it's 95, but we would love to have more. If we could get more people doing the work, that'd be great. This is one of the reasons that we've started accepting the 2-year accounting degree instead of just a 4-year degree. I think that's important. If you are someone that has the background in accounting and you've taken a couple of classes in government accounting, it is distinct from private sector. I'm not concerned about whether or not you have gen eds. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you've taken classes in English literature and science. I want people in the job who can do the job. And so we've tried to increase our flexibility in who we hire to help meet the demand, so we have enough bodies in the office to do the work. I don't think we're at any risk of ending up on the overstaffed side of things for quite some time.
Are there other questions for Representative Johnson?
Morning, Auditor Sand, thank you for being here. I got a couple of questions for you. When it comes to staffing and budget, all of that comes down to a number. But in order for your staff to do their actual job, to come up with those numbers, do you think your office has sufficient access to the information for you all to actually do the job?
That is a good question, Representative Johnson. We have struggled in the last few years. We finally this year just got the state's engagement letter signed without it having to be a battle. That has been a battle since the passage of SF 478. We have wasted time and resources because we have been denied access to records since the passage of that law. And that has complicated our work, it's frustrated our staff, it's driven down morale. There is still a statement in Iowa state law that says that we shall have access upon request to records of the state. And when we're denied that in a blanket fashion, and when we're also denied that specifically for some documents, it makes our work take longer and it makes us waste time. So we certainly would have an easier time, we had an easier time doing our work prior to the passage of SF 478. Changing that law back again, repealing that would be, I think, important for taxpayers, because then we could know we could do the audit work we need to do. But it would also help our staff in our office know that they could ask for something and get it and not have to go around the horn 6 different times asking for one document.
Yeah, a couple more questions. Do you think that there are, thank you, do you think there are any financial risk coming from your office that the legislature should be paying attention to right now?
Well, I guess I go back to the idea that if it's more difficult for the auditor to audit than issuing a clean and reliable opinion is more difficult for us to do. This year, we've had struggles with being allowed to audit the ESA program for 2 years now. Last year, we were not allowed to audit it at all. And this year, because of the substantial increase in the amount of dollars, it was inarguable that we should be allowed to. Auditors are, by auditing standards, required to audit material programs, and the program was, by any definition of the word in the auditing world, material this year. But instead of being provided with those records in May, when we asked for them, we were not provided those records until the very end of November. Now, anybody who's ever had a job knows that if you have a thing that's gonna take you a certain amount of time to do, but you're not allowed to start on it until time's almost up, you can't quite do it the way you wanted to. That was the story for us here. So I do think that that's a meaningful risk. It undermines transparency, it undermines trust, and it's something that I think is it's certainly a risk factor, which is why we identified it in our SAS 122 letter to the state. In general, I would say broader than that, this is an audit risk, our budget. I tend to think that this is pretty simple, right? I mean, every person in this room, if you're driving down the road, you look in the rearview mirror, you see a police officer behind you, your eyes immediately go to your speedometer, right? Because you know that when someone is looking at you, you are gonna do a better job. There are people in this world whose entire job is to help lead others not into temptation. And that is the role of the auditor's office. If we wanna have a situation where every tax dollar is being looked at carefully and being treated with care, then we should wanna have an auditor's office that has open access, muscle, and the time to put attention where it needs to go. And when we're struggling this much with our appropriation, we don't have that.
The final question is kind of a two-part. I know that, there could be some fines from the federal government due to the way that we are operating with some of the audits, with one being here and the other one non-federal funds. Am I reading this right, that your office has since 2019, has only had a 2% appropriation growth compared to 85% growth for the Attorney General's office, which then you all are battling, trying to not pay that fee from the federal government because of the way that the law is written, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, the federal government at this point, and I think that fee, if it comes down, would be coming out of the general fund, not out of our appropriation. We don't have discretion for how we are funded. We are funded under Chapter 11 in this manner. But yeah, I mean, we've been asking for this change since I came in. It hasn't happened. And I think it would be good. I don't think that we need the increase that the Attorney General's office has received. But at the end of the day, I think fixing this would go a long way towards making sure that we aren't just lighting taxpayer money on fire because state law funds the auditor's office in a way that the federal government doesn't like.
Thank you, sir.
Are there other questions for the committee? Yes, Representative Wilburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Auditor Sand. Thanks for, could you turn your?
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. I have a tinnitus in my left ear. Just a couple comments and then a question. I mean, it makes sense to me that, we should plan to pay for our audit, the state to do that. I mean, for-profits do it, nonprofits do it, and so that's part of accountability on their end, and why wouldn't the state want to do that? So that makes sense to me. The other comment is, it's interesting that the feds would consider that we couldn't do that because it's Iowa's taxpayer money too, but, in the federal government. But my question is, and this maybe reaches over into a little bit of policy, but it has implications for the ability to staff your office. And I understand that you said that there's a shortage of auditors statewide, as just in general. So we've had these deserts, I would say, in other areas, health, attorneys, and the legislature has put some incentive programs in it. Some of the incentives I don't like requiring a certain percentage of those admitted to programs. But when we've made a forgivable loan for someone who would be willing to do it and get in that field and stay in the state, would that be something looking forward that you think might be beneficial to help not just your office, but statewide?
Yeah, I actually think that that's a great point. So number one, yes, in terms of people who are working in auditing and accounting, but there's a broader point that your point raises, which is the number of firms that are still willing to do public sector audits. So there's two different sets of rules, as I mentioned earlier. There's private sector auditing and there's government auditing, and they have different rules. And there are fewer and fewer firms that are willing to do audits of counties and cities and school districts. We have increased the number of school districts that we have audited in the auditor's office compared to my predecessor. But we didn't audit many of them then, and I think that's fair to say that's still the truth now. There are only a couple of firms that are doing school district audits. That's not a good situation. So we did propose legislation that would have made it so that if you're an auditing firm, the amount of income that you get from doing public sector audits would be tax-free. So it would provide an incentive for more firms in Iowa to do public sector audits because they could have that income be tax-free. I think that that's a good idea. We want to have good oversight of taxpayer dollars. The last thing that we want to do is have a situation where there are not enough auditors doing the work and the work is substantially delayed. At the end of the day, again, I always go back to that analogy of driving around and all of a sudden there's a police officer in your rearview mirror. You're going to drive more carefully. Your turn signal is going to never have been used as clearly and for as long as it ever has been right then. We need to have everybody who handles taxpayer dollars know that someone is looking because it helps them make the best decisions and the most responsible decisions for taxpayers. And if we don't have enough firms that are doing this work, if the auditing gets delayed by the firms that are doing this work, those are things that make more people who handle taxpayer dollars feel that they are not getting scrutinized, which leads to them thinking that they have an opportunity to misuse that money. Or if they have an opportunity, or maybe if it's a situation where it's not that they are misusing it, but they know that it's not being used well, it takes a little bit of the urgency out of fixing that situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, that'll conclude our presentation. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you all very much.